football club?
Yeah, Everton's finances have been in a bad way for a long time. And so I think the Premier League have been keeping a close eye on it, to the point that they actually ended up working hand in hand to try and ensure that Everton complied. Everton also say that we were transparent with them. We opened up. We agreed to sort of expedite this process and get it seen to as soon as possible, which you could argue that others who are facing such situations have not done.
Were they doing that to get a lighter maybe punishment or something? Because you know when you admit guilt, you kind of like get to a situation where they say, okay, so they've admitted it, so we'll go a little bit more lenient.
I think they know they were in a bit of a mess.
Right,
it's clear when you have lost £304 million, which is way above the permitted £105 million loss across a 3-year period dating up to the 2021 to 22 season, which brought about the charges, or one charge, of breaching profits and sustainability rules in March of this year. There's been this suggestion that the Commission said that Everton didn't gain sporting advantage. I think the Commission actually says they did, but they didn't intend to.
Welcome back to the Football Terrace. We're reviewing some really strong opinions, some big takes from the overlap with David Ornstein, of course, Gary Neville, Carragher, Ian Wright and Keane. I want to get your opinions on that. Of course, hit the like button for the Terrace. Make sure you're subscribing to the Football Terrace as well. Turn on bell notifications and scan the QR code on the screen. We're sponsored today by the brilliant people at NordVPN, who themselves are really helping to support Movember. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show. But it's so interesting what David Ornstein said there. So interesting to me. This notion, whether they meant to or not, I believe Everton did try and gain a sporting advantage by overspending. I don't even believe it's a bad plan. They just executed it poorly. Overspend, invest in the club. The idea being we would improve on the football pitch, increase sponsors, increase prize money, and maybe even make it into one of the big European competitions. That income generated would lead to us not failing profit and sustainability rules. But of course, those rules are there to ensure that football clubs don't get greedy. Football clubs don't behave in a way that can end up destroying the club in the long term. So that's another new bit of information we've got about this, while a lot of people are out there protecting Everton.
And I think it's quite clear for many people to see, you know, when their final day of the season, they stay up against Bournemouth, a goal from Abdoulaye Doucouré, for example, an assist from Idrissa Gueye. These are players that were acquired with money that you could say Everton shouldn't have been spending. The likes of Leicester and Leeds have gone down and are aggrieved. So Everton are whacked with this 10-point penalty, which they are seething about because there's no precedent. It's the biggest penalty in Premier League
Why
history.
have they done that then? Why have they...
For me still, I know me and Lee Gunner went into it on Tuesday. United had a big loss under UEFA's rules and only got a £300,000 fine. Again, there are very different circumstances involved in Everton's. We haven't had revealed by UEFA or by Man United the ins and outs of what they've done, but UEFA themselves have said it was a very minor situation, where the Premier League is stating what Everton have done is far more severe. But I'm glad they've set a precedent. I'm absolutely glad.
Yeah, but I just think Everton, unfortunately for them, are in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Premier League now, there's so much going on with lots of other clubs, and it's a bit like we're making a stand, right, and we've got to stop people breaking rules or thinking they can get away with things. So it comes.
Yeah, listen, Jamie Carragher is right, and this needs to happen across the whole of football. I do agree that I think too many teams for too long have realised we can make mistakes or we can flagrantly disregard the rules because nothing is going to be done. I feel very similar to that of the VAR situation. If we carry on the way we have been, things are only going to get worse, or at the very least, they're not going to improve. The Premier League has to go hard, has to show teeth. Otherwise, although I got called out for this the other day saying it's a fallacy, I don't believe it is. You end up down a slippery slope where more and more teams will start overspending, more and more teams will start breaching rules, and it's going to end in disaster. It will destroy football, in my personal opinion. Before we go any further, though, I do want to stop and say we are sponsored again, as I mentioned, by NordVPN. And we know what a brilliant company Nord are, how they protect you online, they protect your personal information, your data, They protect you from hackers, viruses, and much, much more. I know many of you are using them. I know over 2,000 of you have signed up during the time that we've been sponsored and partnered with NordVPN. If you haven't done it yet, get it done. Very important. It's as cheap as a cup of coffee to protect up to 6 devices at all times, whether you're home or traveling. And the great thing is you get all your content wherever you are in the world because you can change your geolocation. But one of the great things about NordVPN right now is if you buy now, if you sign up to NordVPN, they are donating a percentage of those earnings towards Movember. And if you don't know what Movember is all about, it is essentially started in 2003. It's become a global phenomenon, and it's about raising money and about raising awareness about cancers for men, testicular cancer, it being a real big one as an example, and many others. It's raising awareness for men to check themselves. It's raising awareness to help men through these situations. And as a man myself, it's important. With 2 young sons, it's important. But with 97% of my audience being men, it's very important that you take a look at this as well. So if you don't sign up to NordVPN, cool. If you don't donate to Movember, cool. Go and check out the website. Go and have a look, Movember.com as well. You can do it via our link in the description. Go and read about it. It could just save your life. It really, really could. So go and check that out, people, right now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description below. Now, I want to get back to what else was said here on the overlap. I think it's really key. Should play any second now. I hope. Where we at? Where's the video, KJ?
I don't know, because they're not charged with the same things.
But it's 115.
Okay. It's 115 different charges.
So this is talking about what does this mean now for Manchester City and Chelsea. Chelsea being investigated, City being charged. David Ornstein seen as the sort of chief journalist in the world. He's saying he doesn't even know what it means right now. Ian Wright's challenging him. Let's get back to it.
We don't know
But
how
it's
the
charges.
Yeah, but
Could Everton lads just hold their hands up and take the medicine? I know it's extreme, 10 points, and go. It brings a bit of closure to Everton. They've had a difficult few years. We all think from a footballing point of view, they still have enough to stay up.
Best season to take them.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at it, you think they've won 4 games. They'll have enough to stay up, and they've got a cup game coming up, and try and get the feel good factor back at the club, and just take their medicine and have closure and move on and learn from.
I agree so much with Roy Keane there. If Chelsea and City are guilty, I want them punished. Again, if they're guilty of all the things they're being accused of and more, which is what the reports suggest, then their punishment has to be massive. But Everton's situation is completely different. And this is where I'll stick up for Chelsea and Man City. The deflection, the whataboutism, well, we didn't mean to cheat. They cheated and they hadn't even been done yet is irrelevant. Roy Keane's right. Your club has mismanaged its finances. Your club has broken rules. The same as Man United did in the summer, and we were fined. The same as Barcelona have, and they've been fined. This is your own league. You've broken the rules. Take your punishment. Appeal it. Look, you might get 7 points deducted. Might get a little bit of a leeway there. But take your medicine. What City have done and what Chelsea have both allegedly done is absolutely irrelevant in comparison to Everton's situation.
Their past mistakes.
Roy, you make a point about why wouldn't they just take the punishment? Because the trust and faith has gone completely. And the greed, I'm not going to say corruption, but I'm going to say the greed and selfishness is out of control. It's lawless. The Premier League is a defunct organisation because they basically got 20 clubs all voting with self-interest and with not the greater sort of game at heart. This has been coming for many, many years. The Super League clubs, you mentioned it the other day, I think, that the Super League clubs were punished, six of them that tried to destroy, in essence, the whole
22 million between the 6.
the whole of European football. They were fined 22 million, 3.5 million quid each, which is an absolute disgrace and a scandal for what they attempted to do, which was the attempted murder of our game, essentially. Create a franchise model in the top game in sort of in the world. And
I agree with Gary. So I understand why Everton are pushing back because of their thought. Listen, we've spoke with Sav this week, Lee this week, and everyone views the Chelsea and City situation differently. But the view is very much, well, I don't think City will get in trouble. I don't think Chelsea will get in trouble. I think if they do, it will be only a little bit more than Everton. and there's reports of flagrant disregard of rules. I understand the challenge. Well, why were Man United only fined £300,000 by UEFA in the summer? Now, it's different governing bodies, but I understand. And the point there about the Super League and what those 6 disgraceful clubs tried to do, only fined £3 million each. I understand where some of the outrage comes from. However, the Premier League being a defunct organisation, this is why the Premier League needs to start getting strong on rule breakers. And I don't care whether that's my club or City. I don't want Man United to break rules. I don't want Man United to cheat. But if we do, you will not see a change of attitude from me. It just so happens that it's maybe your club that's done it and not mine. So you think I'm being salty and trying to rub salt into the wound. No, I don't want it to be lawless. I don't want it to become a defunct league. I got called out the other day for the slippery slope fallacy. And the slippery slope fallacy is essentially making predictions without no evidence that things are going to get really bad and when you can't really back it up. But in my personal opinion, if we now, and you can disagree with this, if the league now doesn't punish Everton, if the likes of Chelsea and City are found guilty and they don't get punished, you are going to see more and more clubs start to overspend. You're going to see more and more clubs start to cheat and bend the rules. And there's only a handful of owners in this league who I personally would say I as an individual looking in, trust enough to get that right. Trust enough to not end up bankrupting and putting a club into liquidation. Now, the evidence I would use to support this is if you go before FFP and you go to some of the lower levels in different parts of the country and world, there are multiple examples, not just in football, but of football clubs, football brands, franchises and teams that have overspent, that have overinvested. And the leagues of which they sat in or the associations that they were with did not manage this properly and things have gone bankrupt. Clubs have disappeared. Businesses have done this and disappeared. This has happened throughout life. So for me, this is why I'm not backing Everton. This is why I'm not backing Man United with what happened with FFP in the summer. This is why, if they're guilty of their charges of financial doping, Chelsea and City should be hit with punishments that are so impactful, their ancestors are feeling it. Because that gives the Premier League teeth. That sets a brilliant precedent that you do not mess about, and it gives law and order back to a league that needs it because the money is becoming so big and so powerful. If it's built upon a house of cards, it could all come tumbling down, and the game of which we love could be destroyed.
This is happening month after month now. We've got these. We had another 2 votes yesterday, whereby votes were held on whether you could loan from a multi-club system from another club in a different country, and whether you could vote. They voted also on the sort of front of shirt sponsorship. What you're talking about and what we're talking about here is not football anymore. And I love football, but it's starting to eat itself from the inside out. And the reason I've been calling for an independent regulator for 4 or 5 years, getting on my bandwagon, is because I think it's the only chance we've got. I'm not saying that the independent regulator is going to come in and correct all this, but we need independence, transparency, real-time financial monitoring, proper rules on owners, proper sustainability rules that are actually equalised across the game. Because
I could not agree with Gary Neville. I want to finish the final thing he says here because this is so important. So important, this last little bit.
Just give you an example. In League Two, you know there are 4 different sets of rules in League Two, League One, Championship and the Premier League for sustainability. Premier League is 105 million over the 3-year period. In League Two, you have to basically submit a business plan at the start of each season, and if you are short of money, depending on your revenue from last year, and you're going to propose to spend more on players, if there's a shortfall of cash, you have to put it in as the owner at the start of the season to ensure you can afford to sign those players, or you get stopped signing players. That is absolutely the best way to go.
It is, and I think FFP has a place in football, but I believe it needs reform. I believe that an owner should be able to invest to a degree and to a point as much money as they want to in a football club, but it has to be sustainable investment. They can't invest at the beginning that leaves them with a huge gargantuan debt and black hole, because there's always a debt when you buy players, maybe not on the transfer fees, but on the wages and salary and bonuses, that if they then stop investing in that football club in a year's time, 2 years' time, if heaven forbid they drop down dead, or the family goes bust, or the country they're from gets involved in a war and they get sanctioned, we've seen this happen, we can't allow football clubs to go out of business Because it isn't just people who say, it's just football, it's just people kicking a bit of leather around. It isn't. The local communities connected to each and every single football club in England depends upon that football club greatly. I went to Leyton Orient this week, who are in League One, and there's a pub. My dad used to actually be the manager of it many, many years ago, called the Coach and Horses. And it's relatively busy during the week, but their main days and main sources of income are football days. If suddenly that club went out of business, that pub, loads of the eateries, loads of the cafes, loads of the bars would lose money, the taxi services, etc. Everybody would lose money because of that. And we need to protect it. And that is why it isn't just about who's signing the most. Oh, it's okay for an owner to pump money in this way and do this and do that. There has to be rules that cover everybody. So reform is needed 110%. The same as and an independent regulator. Gary Neville's bang on. And we need the independent regulator for finance, and we need the independent regulator to review decision-making in football, VAR, referees, to actually hold them to account. Well, why have you said this isn't a foul because of X, but there's 25 examples here of it happening in other games where you haven't said this? Holding them to account, training them, making them better, more transparency. And if we had more transparency on every club's finances, if the rules were fairer from top to bottom, and clubs were protected but able to invest, and at the same time, at a decision-making level, we were getting more and more consistency, football would be at no risk at any point of imploding. I'd love to get your thoughts and your feelings. It's a fairly long video today, but I thought it was really important to listen to it. Check out NordVPN and their sponsorship of Movember. If you haven't protected yourself on the internet now, what are you doing? Get that done. Scan my QR code on the screen. Take care. Goodbye. God bless.